I used to believe love just happens, that it finds us when we are ready.
I believed that too, until I noticed my heart kept returning to the same pain,
Different people, same emotional ending.
same confusion, same longing.
I asked myself why attraction never felt calm, why it always felt heavy.
Why connection felt intense but unsafe. Why peace felt unfamiliar.
And that is when I realized something uncomfortable. My past was still choosing for me.
Not consciously, but quietly, from the shadows of childhood.
Most people think love begins the moment we meet someone special. A look, a spark, a feeling that pulls us closer. But love does not begin there. It begins long before we are adults. It begins in childhood, in the way we were held or not held, listened to or dismissed, protected or left to figure things out alone. As children, we are not thinking about relationships. We are learning how connection feels in our bodies. We are learning whether love is safe, predictable, conditional, distant, or overwhelming. These early emotional experiences shape our nervous system, not our logic. And the nervous system never forgets. It remembers what felt normal, even if normal was painful. So when we grow up and feel attracted to someone, that attraction is often our nervous system recognizing a familiar emotional environment, not necessarily a healthy one. The inner child inside us is not a poetic idea. It is the emotional memory of who we had to become in order to survive love. If you had to be quiet to avoid conflict, your inner child learned silence. If you had to be perfect to receive attention, your inner child learned performance. If affection came and went, your inner child learned to wait, to hope, to stay alert. These lessons did not disappear when you became an adult. They became automatic responses. They shape who feels safe to you, who feels exciting, and who feels boring. And this is why attraction can be misleading, because attraction often points to familiarity, not fulfillment.
This is where many people feel confused. They ask themselves why they keep choosing partners who hurt them in similar ways. They wonder why they feel deeply drawn to people who cannot meet them emotionally. They blame timing. They blame bad luck. But what they rarely consider is that the psyche is wired to repeat what it has not healed. The repetition is not a failure. It is an attempt at resolution. Somewhere deep inside, the inner child believes that if it can finally get love from a familiar type of person, then the original wound will close. This is why someone who grew up with emotional absence may feel drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because their nervous system learned early that love equals distance. That longing equals connection. That closeness must be earned. So when they meet someone who is warm but inconsistent, attentive but distant, their body reacts, the heart races, the mind fixates. It feels like chemistry, but it is not chemistry. It is recognition. It is the inner child saying, I know this pattern. I survived this before. Maybe this time it will end differently.
This is how trauma bonds form. Trauma bonding is not about weakness or lack of self-respect. It is about attachment shaped under stress. When love is unpredictable, the brain releases powerful chemicals during moments of closeness. Dopamine creates pleasure. Cortisol creates anxiety. Together, they create intensity. And intensity becomes mistaken for depth. The relationship feels alive, urgent, consuming, not because it is healthy, but because it mirrors an emotional environment where love was uncertain. In trauma-bonded relationships, the lows hurt deeply, but the highs feel euphoric. And those highs keep us staying. We wait for the next moment of connection, the next message, the next apology, the next sign that we matter. This pattern often mirrors childhood dynamics, where affection came sporadically. So the inner child learns that love is something you chase, something you earn, something you hold on to tightly because it might disappear. Over time, this creates an addiction to emotional inconsistency. Calm feels empty, stability feels dull, and chaos feels like passion. Repetition patterns do not mean you are broken. They mean you adapted. As a child, you did what you had to do to stay connected to the people you depended on. You adjusted your behavior, your emotions, even your needs. You learned what to suppress and what to exaggerate. Those adaptations made sense then. But when they follow us into adulthood, they create relationships that feel familiar but unfulfilling. A child who learned that expressing needs led to rejection may grow into an adult who minimizes themselves. A child who learned that love required caretaking may grow into an adult who overgives. A child who experienced abandonment may grow into an adult who fears being too much while constantly choosing partners who give too little. These are not conscious choices. They are emotional reflexes. And until they are brought into awareness, they quietly guide who we fall for, who we stay with, and who we cannot let go of.
One of the hardest truths to accept is that we do not fall in love with people for who they are. We fall in love with how they make us feel about ourselves. And often, they make us feel the same way we felt as children. Small, needed, anxious, hopeful, invisible, chosen. When someone triggers an old wound, it can feel like fate, like a deep soul connection. But what it often is an unresolved emotional loop. We tell ourselves stories to justify staying. We say it is complicated. We say they are misunderstood. We say love takes work. And love does take work, but it should not require you to abandon yourself. Real love does not recreate childhood pain. It does not keep you guessing. It does not make you feel unsafe in moments of vulnerability. When love consistently hurts, it is not a test of endurance. It is a signal that something unresolved is being replayed. Healing begins when awareness interrupts repetition. When you start noticing that attraction is not always guidance. Sometimes it is memory. Sometimes it is the nervous system reaching for what it knows. The work is not to judge yourself for these patterns, but to understand them. To ask yourself not, why am I drawn to this person? But what part of me feels familiar here? Healing the inner child means learning to provide yourself with what was missing. Consistency, validation, safety. It means learning to sit with calm without searching for intensity. It means choosing partners who feel steady even when they do not trigger fireworks. Because real connection does not overwhelm the nervous system. It regulates it. And when your nervous system learns that peace is safe, your definition of love changes. You stop confusing anxiety with passion. You stop confusing longing with depth. You stop chasing people who cannot meet you. Not because you force yourself to change, but because your inner child no longer needs to repeat the past to feel seen.
When people begin this healing journey, they often feel lost. They say things like, I do not feel attracted to healthy people, or I feel bored when things are stable. And this is where compassion matters. Because boredom is not always boredom. Sometimes it is unfamiliar calm. A nervous system that grew up in chaos does not recognize peace as safety. It recognizes it as emptiness. So when a relationship does not activate anxiety, the body looks for stimulation elsewhere. This does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your system is adjusting. Healing is uncomfortable because it feels like learning a new emotional language. You are teaching your body that love does not have to hurt to be real. That connection does not require sacrifice of self. That you can be chosen without proving your worth. Many people fear that healing will make love less intense. But what actually happens is that love becomes deeper, quieter, more stable. You begin to experience connection without fear. You communicate without panic. You receive without guilt. And yes, it may feel less dramatic, but drama was never intimacy. Drama was survival. When you heal childhood wounds, you stop choosing partners who mirror your pain and start choosing partners who meet your needs. This shift can feel lonely at first because you are breaking away from familiar patterns, but loneliness in healing is temporary. Staying stuck is not.
One of the most powerful moments in healing is realizing that you are allowed to choose differently, that you do not have to repeat what you know, that love does not have to feel like home if home was unsafe. You can build something new, something gentle, something secure. And this is not about blaming parents or the past. It is about understanding how deeply early experiences shape our expectations. Awareness gives you choice, and choice is where freedom begins. When you change your internal patterns, your external relationships change too. Not because the world shifts, but because you do. You stop tolerating breadcrumbs, you stop chasing emotional unavailability, you stop trying to earn love. And one day, you look at your past patterns and realize something incredible. They no longer pull you, they no longer feel exciting, they feel exhausting. And that is how you know healing is happening.
Love is not random. It is remembered.
Attraction often speaks in the language of the past, not the future.
Healing begins when you listen without obeying. When you choose safety.
Your inner child does not need repetition. It needs reassurance.
When the wound heals, the pattern loosens, and love softens.
That is when love stops hurting and starts feeling safe.